My name's Chris, and what I'm about to tell you is one of those experiences that still keeps me up at night, even now, all these years later. I'm from a small town in upstate New York. This all went down in the summer of 2003, right after I graduated college and moved into my first apartment. It was one of those rundown places on the edge of town, cheap rent, but no frills. I didn't have much furniture and definitely no TV. Back then, streaming wasn't a thing. If you wanted to watch anything, you needed a set with a VCR, or you'd rent movies from Blockbuster. One weekend, I decided to hit up the local swap meet. It was this big outdoor flea market that popped up every Saturday in an old fairground lot. People sold everything from rusty tools to handmade quilts. I was browsing the electronics section, mostly junk like broken radios and ancient computers, when I spotted this old TV. It was one of those bulky CRT models with a built-in VCR player, probably from the late 80s or early 90s. The seller was an older guy, maybe in his 60s, with a thick beard and a trucker hat. He said it worked fine, just needed a good dusting. I haggled him down to $20 and lugged it home in my beat-up Honda. When I got back to my apartment, I set it up in the living room on a milk crate, plugged it in, and sure enough, the picture came on clear. Static at first, but I tuned it to a local channel and it was good. That's when I noticed the VCR slot had something in it. I hit eject and out popped a VHS tape. It was a standard black cassette, but someone had stuck a handwritten label on it, June 11th, 1982. No other markings, just that date in faded blue ink. I figured it was probably some family's home videos that got left behind, maybe birthday parties or vacation footage. I was curious though, nosy really, so I popped it back in and hit play. The screen flickered to life with that classic VHS hum, and what came on wasn't what I expected at all. The footage started abruptly, like it had been recorded over something else. You could see faint ghosts of an older video bleeding through, kids playing in a backyard, maybe a barbecue, but it was mostly overwritten. The new stuff showed a group of people walking through a dense forest. It looked like it was shot on one of those old camcorders, the kind that weighed a ton and had terrible stabilization. The camera was shaky as hell, jerking around with every step. There were about 4 people in frame, 2 guys and 2 girls, all in their late teens or early 20s, dressed in 80s clothes, high-waisted jeans, windbreakers, sneakers. The sun was setting, casting long orange shadows through the trees, making everything look eerie and golden. Their voices were muffled at first, like the mic was half covered, but I could make out snippets of conversation. One guy, who sounded like the leader, tall with a mullet, said something like, "Come on, it's not that far. The legends have to be bullshit, right? But imagine if they're not." The others laughed nervously. A girl with big curly hair replied, "I don't know, Mike. My grandma said people disappeared out here back in the 50s, like whole families." They were joking around, but you could hear the edge in their voices, the kind of fake bravado you put on when you're trying to psych yourself up for something stupid. The tape cut in and out a lot, static bursts where the overwrite wasn't complete. In those glitches, I'd catch flashes of the original home movie, a little kid blowing out birthday candles, a dog chasing a ball. It was disorienting, like 2 realities bleeding into each other. Back to the forest group. They kept walking, pushing through thick underbrush. The camera panned around, showing tall pines and oaks, leaves crunching underfoot. One of them tripped on a root, and everyone burst out laughing. "Watch your step, clumsy," someone teased. Then they reached a creek. It was narrow but fast-moving, with rocks slick from moss. The camera shook even more as they crossed, balancing on fallen logs. Water splashed up, and I heard cursing. "Shit, my shoes are soaked." The sun was lower now, the light dimmer, turning the woods from inviting to shadowy. They talked more about the legends. From what I pieced together, there was this old abandoned house deep in the woods, rumored to be haunted. Stories of a woman that lived there in the 1600s. Kids in town dared each other to find it, but most chickened out. These guys were determined, though. "If we see a ghost, first one to scream buys beers," the mullet guy said. After the creek, the terrain opened up a bit. They crossed an overgrown field, tall grass whipping at their legs. Bugs were swarming. I could hear the buzzing on the audio. The sky was turning purple, stars starting to peek out. One of the girls complained about the dark, but they pressed on. The camera caught glimpses of wildlife, a deer bolting away, owls hooting in the distance. It felt isolated, like they were miles from civilization. Finally, after what seemed like 20 minutes of footage, though with all the cuts, it was hard to tell, they stepped out of the trees into a large clearing. And there it was, the house. It was this decrepit old Victorian-style thing, sagging in the middle, windows boarded up or shattered, vines crawling over the walls like veins, paint peeling, roof caved in places. It looked like something out of a nightmare, isolated, forgotten, radiating that kind of wrongness you feel in your gut. By now, it was full night. No more sunset glow, just pitch black except for the beam of a single flashlight one of them was holding. The light swept over the porch, illuminating rusted chains on the door, graffiti scratched into the wood, turn back, and weird symbols I couldn't make out. The group huddled close, whispering. "Holy shit, it's real," one guy said, voice trembling. The camera zoomed in on the front door, creaking in the wind. Then, static. The footage just ended. No resolution, no inside the house, nothing. Just black screen for a few seconds. I thought that was it, some unfinished adventure tape. But then, after a long pause, it cut back to the original home movie that had been overwritten. This part was clearer, untouched. It showed a suburban backyard barbecue, people laughing, burgers on the grill, kids running around. A man, probably the dad, waved at the camera, holding up a beer. In the background, I could see a street sign and a house number. It was blurry at first, but as the camera panned, it focused. 147 Elm Street, right here in my town. I paused the tape, rewound, and checked again. Yeah, no doubt. Same town, same street. Elm Street was only a few miles from my apartment. At this point, I was intrigued more than scared. Who leaves a tape like this in a VCR? Maybe the seller at the swap meet didn't know it was there, or it was from a previous owner. I figured the polite thing was to track down whoever owned it, return the tape, maybe ask about the forest adventure. It seemed like a cool story. So the next day, I looked up 147 Elm Street in the phone book, found a listing for a family named Carmichael. I called the number, but the line was disconnected. I wasn't ready to give up though. Maybe they just changed numbers or something. I decided to drive over there myself, bring the tape, knock on the door, and see if anyone was home. It was a sunny afternoon, birds chirping, kids playing in yards along the way. Elm Street was in one of those older neighborhoods, with big maple trees lining the sidewalks and houses that had been around since the 50s. As I pulled up to 147 though, my heart skipped a beat. The place looked wrong. Overgrown weeds choked the lawn, tall enough to brush my knees as I got out of the car. The paint was peeling in long strips, windows filthy with grime, and the front porch sagged like it hadn't seen a repair in decades. That's when I heard a voice behind me. "Can I help you with something, son?" I turned around, startled. It was an older man, probably in his 80s, stepping out from the house next door. He had a cane, wire-rimmed glasses, and that wary look neighbors get when strangers show up. I explained quickly about the TV from the swap meet, finding the tape, seeing the address in the footage. "I'm looking for the Carmichaels," I said. "Figured I'd return this to them." The neighbor's face changed, went from suspicious to something like pity, mixed with unease. He glanced at the house, then back at me. "The Carmichaels? They haven't lived here in, must be over 20 years now. Left right after their boy went missing back in '82. That was a bad time. The whole town was shook up. Police combed the woods for weeks, but nothing. No body, no clues. Just vanished, along with his 3 friends. The parents, they let the place go after that. Stopped mowing, stopped painting. It was like the life got sucked out of them. Eventually, they packed up and moved away. Out of state, I think. House has been empty ever since. Banks owned it for years, but no one's buying." I felt a knot in my stomach. Missing? Like in the woods? The tape shows them heading to some abandoned house out there. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's the story. The kids were chasing an old legend. Goes back to the 1600s, when this area was just settlements. Folks said there was an evil woman living in the forest, preying on the colonists. She'd come in the night, whisper through windows, lure children out of their beds. They'd follow her into the woods and poof, gone. No trace. Some said she ate them to stay young. Others said she trapped their souls in the trees or something like that. Kids like the Carmichael boy, they heard the stories and thought it'd be a thrill to find out. He pointed vaguely toward the edge of town. The path starts behind the old mill, about 5 miles north. Follow the creek, cross the field, you'll find the clearing. But don't go poking around, son. Bad things happen out there. The Carmichael's son and his friends, they were the last ones dumb enough to try, or at least the last we know about. I thanked him and got back in my car, but my mind was racing. That night, I couldn't sleep. The tape sat on my coffee table, labels staring up at me. I replayed it in my head, the forest walk, the house, the static, and now this old legend. It felt too connected, too real. I had to know. Stupid, I know, but curiosity's a hell of a drug. The next evening, after work, I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the old mill. The sun was dipping low, just like in the footage. I parked and found the trail, overgrown but still there. Trees closed in quick, pines and oaks blocking out the light. Leaves crunched under my boots, and I swear every snap sounded like footsteps behind me. I crossed the creek on those same slick rocks, water cold as it splashed my jeans. Then the field, grass up to my waist, bugs biting at my arms. The sky turned purple, stars winking on. It was exactly like the tape, step for step. My heart pounded harder with every minute. Finally, the clearing, and the house, or what was left of it. It was worse than the footage. Roof fully collapsed in spots, walls buckling, vines so thick they looked like they were holding the place together. The door hung off one hinge, creaking in the breeze. No chains anymore, but the graffiti was there, weathered, turned back. I shone my flashlight around the porch. Dust, broken glass. The air smelled musty, like rot and old wood. Why was I here? To prove it was just a story? To see if the legend was real? I don't know, but I stepped inside. The floorboards groaned under my weight, threatening to give. My light swept the room, faded wallpaper peeling in sheets, furniture reduced to splintered husks, cobwebs draped like curtains. Nearby, rusted cans of beer, like from a party that never ended. I moved deeper, into what might have been a kitchen. Scratches on the walls, deep like claws. And then, upstairs, a faint dragging sound. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking like a scream. At the top, a hallway, doors ajar. I pushed one open, a bedroom. My flashlight hit the far wall, and there, figures etched into the plaster like burn marks. Human shapes, 4 of them, twisted in agony, arms outstretched, mouths open wide. They looked fresh, not faded like the rest of the decay. The air grew cold, my breath fogging. I backstepped out of the room, and that's when I heard something running at full speed to my left from the end of the hall. I turned and tripped on a loose board. Fell hard. When I looked up, nothing was there, and the figures were gone. I had scratches on my arm, 5 long lines bleeding, that weren't there before. I ran, bolted down the stairs, out the door, through the field and woods. Didn't stop till I hit my car. Drove home shaking and locked every door. That was 22 years ago now. I still have the tape all these years later. Should I trash it? Burn it? Something tells me I should, but I can't seem to let it go.